What do you do when a simple clinic visit turns into a federal problem? How can my DNA be tied to a missing child from 43 years ago when I was born in 1982? Why did the doctor call extra staff, then tell me officials were already on the way? My name is Grant Parker. I am 43. A year ago, I had a shop with my name on the door. I had a small team. I had regular clients. I had a house that felt busy and warm. Now I live in a basement studio with one small window near the ceiling. The light comes in like it is tired. I did not lose everything in one big moment. It happened in pieces. A late invoice here, a missed payment there, a meeting I was not invited to, a promise that turned into a delay. People kept telling me it would be fine. I believed them because I wanted peace more than I wanted control. That morning I woke up before my alarm. My back hurt from the couch. I had used the bed for boxes and a folding table, like a desk. I sat up slow so my head would not spin. The room smelled like old cardboard and instant coffee. I checked my phone. 2 missed calls from an unknown number from the day before. No message. My bank app showed a number that made my throat tight. Rent was due soon. The power bill was behind. I had enough for groceries if I stayed careful. I stared at the wall where I had taped a list. It was written in black marker. Rent, power, bus pass, phone. A small line under it said, "Keep it simple." I washed my face in the small bathroom sink. The water took a long time to warm up. I put on the cleanest shirt I had. It used to be a work shirt. Now it was just a shirt. I still ironed it because it helped me feel steady. Before I went to the temp agency, I took the long way. I told myself I was just walking. But I knew where I was going. I wanted to see it. I wanted to confirm that it was real. My old storefront was on a corner near a busy road. I used to unlock the door at 7 in the morning. I used to smell fresh wood and machine oil. I used to hear my own footsteps on the floor and feel proud. Now there was a new sign above the door. Bright letters, clean edges. The glass was polished. A new name was there, and my name was not. My old logo was still faint on the inside of the window, like a shadow that refused to leave. I stood across the street and watched people go in. A delivery person carried boxes. Someone in a suit laughed on a phone call. Nobody looked at me. That was the worst part. I was not even a problem. I was just empty space. A car horn snapped me out of it. I stepped back from the curb. I did not cross. I did not go closer. I just looked one more time and then turned away. On the way to the temp agency, I stopped at a coffee shop. It was warm inside. The smell was strong and sweet. I ordered the cheapest drink and sat near the window so I could see the street. 2 men sat at the next table. They talked loud, like the room belonged to them. They wore work boots and clean jackets. One of them had a clipboard. They were talking about a job site. Then I heard my business name, not the old name on the door. My name. They said it like it was a lesson. They said the shop had finally been fixed after the previous owner ran it into the ground. They said the new guy was doing it right. I kept my eyes on my cup. I did not look at them. My hands stayed still on the table. My stomach felt hot. One of them said he heard I had been too soft to run a real company. He said I let people walk over me. The other one laughed and said that is what happens when a man tries to be nice all the time. I took a slow breath. I told myself that words are cheap. I told myself I was not there to fight strangers. I was there to survive today. Still, I could feel the weight of it. This is how stories travel. People do not ask for details. They repeat whatever sounds simple. I finished my drink and left. Outside, the air was cold and sharp. It helped. The temp agency was in a plain building with beige walls and a bright sign. Inside, the chairs were plastic and the floor was shiny. A TV on the wall played a daytime show with no sound. I took a number and waited. A young recruiter called me up. She smiled like she was doing a job, not like she meant it. She asked what I could do. I told her my skills. I told her what I built. I kept it short. She nodded, but her eyes moved past me like she was already done. She asked if I could lift boxes. She asked if I could stand for 10 hours. She asked if I had any real certifications, like my years meant nothing. I told her I could work. I told her I was open to many things. I did not argue. I had learned that arguing in places like that only makes you look desperate. She handed me a form and said there might be a warehouse shift. The pay was low. The hours were unstable. She said it like it was a gift. I thanked her. I took the form. I walked out with a small packet of papers that felt like an insult. Outside, I sat on a bench for a minute. Cars passed. People walked with purpose. I felt like a man watching life through glass. I checked my phone again. Still nothing from the unknown number. I opened a note app and typed a short plan. Call landlord. Ask for 1 more week. Find extra cash today. Do not beg. Do not explain too much. Then I remembered the flyer. 2 days earlier, I had seen it on a community board near the bus stop. It was simple. It said a local clinic was offering $1,000 for a stem cell donation. It said it was safe. It said it helped patients. It said the appointment could be fast. At the time, I had torn off the little number strip and put it in my wallet. I told myself I would not do it unless I had to. Now I knew I had to. The clinic was across town. I took the bus. I watched the city move outside the window. I saw office buildings, then older houses, then a strip of small shops. I tried not to think about the number. $1,000. It was not a fortune. It was rent and power and groceries. It was time. It was a breath. The clinic was clean and quiet. The front desk had a clear barrier. A plant sat in the corner. A poster on the wall showed smiling people in bright colors. The air smelled like sanitizer. A woman at the desk asked for my ID and insurance. I said I did not have insurance right now. She did not change her face. She just wrote something down and asked for my address. I gave the basement address. I felt my throat tighten, but I said it anyway. She handed me forms, many pages, medical history, family history, consent pages. I read them slowly. I signed where it told me. I used careful letters, like the pen could change my fate. In the waiting area, there were 5 other people. Some looked tired, one looked nervous. A man in a hoodie bounced his knee fast. A woman scrolled on her phone with a blank face. A staff member walked through the room with a clipboard. She looked at the group and said they were running a little behind. She said some people came in just for the money and did not follow the rules, so it made things slower. She laughed lightly, like it was a harmless joke. A couple of people smiled. The man in the hoodie shook his head. I did not react. I just stared at a point on the wall and listened to the hum of the lights. My name was called. I stood and followed a nurse down a hallway. She was polite but fast. She asked basic questions. Any allergies? Any recent sickness? Any travel? I answered. I kept my voice calm. I have learned that calm makes people treat you better, even when they do not respect you. She took my blood pressure. It was a little high. She told me to breathe and relax. I did. The number went down. She drew blood for tests. I watched the vial fill. I did not feel faint. I was too focused. She labeled it and set it in a tray. Then she asked me to wait in a small room. It had a chair, an exam table, and a paper towel dispenser. There was a framed print on the wall of a lake at sunrise. It looked like something chosen to make people feel safe. I sat in the chair and put my hands on my knees. I listened. The hallway had soft footsteps and low voices. I thought about my old life. I thought about mornings in my shop, coffee in my hand, keys in my pocket. I thought about the way people used to ask me for advice. I thought about how quickly respect can vanish when money is gone. I also thought about my wife, Lena. I did not let myself go too deep. It was still raw, but the shape of it was always there. She used to call me steady, then she started calling me slow. She used to say she admired my calm, then she started saying I had no drive. I had tried to keep the peace. I had tried to fix problems quietly. I had tried to trust people who smiled at me. In the end, I was alone with my problems, and everyone else had a story where I was the reason. A knock came at the door. The nurse opened it and said the doctor wanted to see me. Her voice was different, more careful, like she was walking on thin ice. I stood and followed her again. We stopped near a desk area where staff worked on computers. I saw the nurse lean toward another staff member and say something low. I did not catch the words, but I saw the other person look up fast. A moment later, the nurse guided me into a different exam room. This one was larger. It had 2 chairs instead of 1. A computer screen faced away from me. She told me to sit. She said the doctor would be in soon. I sat. My hands were still on my knees. My eyes moved around the room. I noticed the small details. A box of gloves, a stack of paper towels, a new roll of medical paper on the table. The door opened again. Another staff member came in and stood near the wall. She did not speak. She just watched, like she was there for support. Then the doctor entered. A woman in a white coat with a tired face and sharp eyes. She held a folder. She did not smile the way doctors usually do when they want you to relax. She sat across from me. She looked at the folder, then at me, then back at the folder. Her lips pressed into a line. She said there was something unusual in my preliminary results. She said it was not a health emergency, but it was serious in a different way. She said the clinic had to follow procedure. I asked what it meant. My voice stayed even, but I could hear a small crack in it. She said she needed to ask me identity questions. She asked if I had ever used another name. She asked if I was adopted. She asked if I had any paperwork issues in the past. I told her I had one name. I told her my mother raised me. I told her I did not know much about the first year of my life, but I was not aware of anything unusual. The doctor nodded slowly. She said she was going to make a call and confirm information before moving forward. She told me to stay seated. She said a staff member would remain with me. I nodded. I told her I understood. She left the room. The staff member stayed. She kept her hands folded in front of her. She did not look at her phone. She did not speak. I sat there in the bright room and listened to the hallway again. I could hear low voices, then silence, then a printer sound somewhere far away. I came to the clinic for $1,000 and a simple appointment. Instead, I was sitting under a white light, waiting for a call I did not understand, while two strangers watched me like I might vanish if they looked away. When I left the clinic that day, I did not go straight home. I walked for a long time, even though my bus card was almost empty. My mind kept trying to make the room normal again. Bright light, white coat, a folder. 2 extra staff members standing like this was not a routine appointment. I kept thinking that I must have misunderstood. People get mixed up in systems all the time. Names get typed wrong. Numbers get copied wrong. It happens. That was the story I tried to hold on to, because it was the safest one. But the doctor's face did not match a simple mistake. On the sidewalk, I finally admitted something I had been avoiding for months. My life did not fall apart because I was unlucky. It fell apart because I kept letting other people decide what I deserved. I used to think patience was strength. I still do, in a way. But patience without boundaries is just permission. A year and a half earlier, I was still running my shop. It was not a big company. It was a service business with a small team and steady clients. My strength was quality. I did not chase quick deals. I built trust. People came back because I kept my word. Owen Price was my partner on paper, but not in the way people think when they hear that word. I built the systems. I handled the work plans. I trained staff. Owen handled relationships. That meant he went to lunches, shook hands, smiled for photos, and talked like he owned the room. At first, it worked. I am not good at selling myself. I never was. Owen seemed like the kind of person who could do that part without effort. He told me he admired my calm and my focus. He told me my work spoke for itself. I believed him. Then small things started to shift. A client would call and say Owen promised a deadline I never agreed to. Owen would say it was just business energy, and I should not be so rigid. I would work late to make it happen because I did not want the client to suffer. A vendor would send an invoice with different terms than we discussed. Owen would say he already confirmed it because we needed to move fast. I would accept it because I did not want to slow down the operation. A new hire would show up, and Owen would announce they were starting right away. I would find out after the fact. I would train them anyway because I did not want our team to feel unstable. Every time I adjusted, the lesson was the same. If Owen pushed, I would bend. Around that same time, my marriage started to change. Lena and I met when I was building the shop. She came in as a customer. We talked about practical things at first, schedules, quality, costs. Then we talked about life. She told me she liked how steady I was. She told me she felt safe around me. I did not take that lightly. I did not come from a loud family. My mother raised me with rules and routines. She always said that stability is love you can see. She kept the same meals, the same bedtime, the same way of folding towels. As a kid, I sometimes wanted more excitement. As an adult, I understood what she gave me. So when Lena said she wanted a steady life, I believed her. I built my days around that idea. After we got married, she liked telling people I was reliable. She would introduce me as the kind of man who always showed up. I did not mind. I was proud. Then the comments slowly shifted. At first, it was small. She would say I should wear different clothes. She would say I should smile more in photos. She would say I should speak louder when we were with her friends. I tried. I did not fight it. I told myself it was normal. Couples adjust. Then it became sharper. She would talk about other men's careers like they were exciting stories. She would talk about travel and parties and big lives. She would look at my shop like it was too small, even though it paid our bills and gave us comfort. When I tried to explain that building something stable takes time, she would say I was always making excuses. She would say she did not want to feel like she was waiting for her life to start. I told her I understood. I told her we could plan more. I told her we could make goals. I did not want a fight. I wanted a solution. The more I tried to be calm, the more people around me started to treat my calm like weakness. At a dinner with Lena's friends, someone asked what I did. I explained my work in simple terms. One of her friends laughed and said it sounded like a job for older guys who like routine. Lena did not correct them. She smiled like she did not want to cause tension. On the drive home, she told me not to take it personally. She told me her friends were just playful. She said I was too sensitive. I did not argue. I said I would let it go, but I did not let it go. I stored it. I stored it the way you store small stones in a pocket until you realize you can barely walk. The worst part was the way Owen used Lena's changing attitude as cover. When Owen spoke about the business, he started using words like vision and momentum. He would say I was too cautious. He would say I was holding the shop back with my need to check details. I know how that sounds. It sounds like a normal disagreement. It would have been normal if Owen did not also move money and decisions without telling me. I started noticing missing information. A client would reference a meeting I was never invited to. A supplier would say Owen approved a larger order than we needed. A staff member would ask about a new direction Owen mentioned, like it was already decided. I asked Owen about it. He said he was protecting me from stress. He said I should be grateful he took pressure off my shoulders. He said I got stuck in the weeds, and someone had to steer the ship. I told him I heard him. I told him I appreciated his effort. I told him I still needed to be included. He smiled and said he would include me more. Then he did not. At home, Lena began treating my work like background noise. If I came in late, she would not ask if I was okay. If I tried to talk about a difficult client or a staffing issue, she would look at her phone. She would say she was tired. She would tell me I was always bringing work home. At the same time, she would ask for new things, a nicer car, a better kitchen, a vacation. When I said we needed to plan carefully, she would sigh like I was choosing to disappoint her. It turned into a pattern. If I said no, I was the problem. If I said yes, it was not enough. I tried counseling. I suggested we talk to someone. Lena said we did not need that. She said the real problem was that I was not changing fast enough. A few months later, I got the first clear sign that Owen was not just overstepping. He was positioning. We had a meeting with a big client. It was a contract that could have stabilized our year. I arrived early and set up our materials. Owen arrived late, confident and smiling. He brought coffee for everyone except me. During the meeting, he spoke as if he was the main owner. He used I more than we. He promised upgrades I had not approved. He made jokes about my careful style, like I was an old tool that still worked but was not exciting. I kept my face neutral. I did not correct him in front of the client. I did not want to make us look divided. After the meeting, I told Owen we needed to talk. He said he handled it. He said the client loved him. He said I should not be jealous. I was not jealous. I was alarmed. When I brought it up at home, Lena surprised me. She said Owen was good at being bold. She said maybe the business needed more bold energy. She said I was too worried about details and not enough about growth. That was the moment I realized she was listening to him. Not to me. My shop had a small office in the back with 2 desks. One was mine, one was Owen's. I started noticing Owen's desk was always clean, like a display. Mine was full of real work, receipts, schedules, repairs, notes. I felt like a worker in my own place. Then came the final stretch, the part that still makes my stomach tighten when I replay it. One morning, Owen called me into the office and said we needed to restructure. He said the market was changing. He said we needed to move fast to protect the brand. He said he had already talked to someone who could invest. I asked what that meant. Owen said it meant paperwork. He said it was routine. He said I would still be involved. I told him I wanted to read everything carefully. Owen's smile faded for a second. He said he did not have time for me to slow it down. He said if I could not be flexible, I might not fit the new plan. That was the first time he said it plainly. Replaceable. I went home that day and told Lena I felt pushed out of my own business. I told her I was worried. I told her I needed support. She did not ask questions. She did not ask for details. She said Owen was trying to help. She said I always assumed the worst about confident people. She said maybe I should accept that I was not good at leadership. I remember the exact feeling in my chest. Not anger, not sadness, something colder. It was the feeling of being alone in a room with someone who used to be on your side. A week later, I received a notice that certain accounts were being changed. I tried to speak to Owen, but he was always in a meeting. Staff members stopped making eye contact. Clients stopped calling me directly. Then the landlord for the shop called about late rent. I told him it must be a mistake. I said we were paid up. He said the last payment did not clear. That is how it went. One small failure after another until suddenly it was not small anymore. Lena moved into her sister's place for space. Owen sent messages about urgent decisions. People in town began repeating a simple story. Grant could not keep up. Grant lost control. Grant was too slow. And I let them. I kept hoping that if I stayed calm and cooperative, things would settle. I thought being reasonable would protect me. I thought truth would naturally rise. Truth does not rise by itself. It needs a structure. It needs timestamps. It needs records. It needs someone willing to hold it steady. That is what I did not understand until it was too late. By the time I was in that clinic exam room, I was not just broke. I was also trained to accept confusion. I was trained to accept other people's narratives. So when the doctor looked at me like I was a problem the system had been waiting for, a part of me almost accepted it as normal too. Almost. The next day, the unknown number called again. This time, a message was left. The voice said they were from the clinic. The person said the doctor needed to see me as soon as possible. The tone was polite, but it was not casual. It sounded like a rule, not a request. I went back in the afternoon. I did not eat lunch. My stomach felt tight, like it did not want food. On the bus ride, I watched people look at their phones and laugh. It felt strange that the world stayed normal while my thoughts did not. At the front desk, they did not make me wait in the main room. A staff member came out and said they would take me straight back. She said it softly, like she did not want the other people to hear. That alone told me this was not a simple mix-up. The same doctor met me in the exam room. She did not sit right away. She checked the door and spoke to another staff member in a low voice. Then she sat and held her folder with both hands. She said my sample triggered a federal match. She said it was connected to an old missing child file. She said the system marked my DNA with a note that did not fit my stated birth year. She said the note used the word removed and gave a year, 1981. I told her that could not be right. I said I was born in 1982. I said that was what my mother always told me. I said that was what every school form said. I said I had lived my whole life with that year. The doctor listened without interrupting. Then she said she was not accusing me of anything. She said the clinic did not decide what the match meant. She said their job was to report it and follow the procedure. She said a federal team had already been notified by the system and would contact me. I asked if I was in trouble. She said she could not give legal advice. She said the process was about identity and confirmation. She said it could be a mistake, but the system treated it as serious until proven otherwise. I asked what I should do next. She said I should keep my phone on. She said I should not try to fix anything alone. She said it was better to wait and respond through official steps. I nodded. I told her I understood. My voice stayed calm, but my hands felt cold. The doctor looked at me and said she could see I was trying to stay steady. She said that was good. She said panic only makes things harder. When I left the room, I noticed something else. A staff member stood near the hallway entrance, watching the flow of people. It did not feel like security. It felt like careful control. I walked out with my shoulders relaxed, but inside my thoughts were moving fast. Outside, I sat in my car for a few minutes, even though the car was old and I did not like to waste fuel. I needed a small space where nobody would look at my face. I opened my phone and scrolled through old photos. Not because I wanted memories, but because I wanted proof. Birthday cakes, school events, my mother behind the camera, dates in the corners. I was trying to convince myself my life was real. Then I stopped. I realized I was doing the same thing I always did. I was trying to soothe the situation without structure. I was trying to calm it instead of understanding it. That was the clarity moment for me. It was not anger. It was not panic. It was a clean thought, like a light turning on in a quiet room. If my identity was being questioned by a system, then feelings would not matter. Only records would matter. Timelines would matter. The order of events would matter. If I did not build that structure myself, someone else would build it for me. I drove to the hospital records office. I did not know exactly what I was allowed to request, but I knew I had to start somewhere. The office was in a quiet part of the building. It smelled like paper and disinfectant. A small sign on the desk said to take a number. When my number was called, I walked up and said I needed records connected to my birth. The clerk looked at my ID and typed on her keyboard. Her face stayed flat, like she had seen everything and cared about none of it. She asked what I meant by connected. I said I wanted the basic file, the kind that shows where and when a person was born and who signed the papers. The clerk said she could not release that type of file without a formal request. She said it had to be submitted in a certain way, and she said I would likely need legal support. I asked what the formal request looked like. She slid a paper across the counter and said the instructions were on it. Her tone made it sound like the end of the conversation. I thanked her and stepped aside. I looked at the paper. It was simple, but it was also a wall. It listed steps, fees, and waiting times. It also listed reasons requests could be denied. I walked out of the hospital and sat on a bench outside. I felt small for a moment, not because the clerk was rude, but because the system had weight. The system did not bend for my stress. And then I felt something else. Relief. A heavy system can crush you, but it can also protect you. It means nobody can just decide your future by talking louder. It means process matters. I went to the public library after that. I did not need the internet to tell me who I was. I needed the library for quiet, for space, and for the feeling of a plan. I found a table near the back. I took out a notebook and wrote my name at the top. Under it, I wrote the year I believed I was born. Then I wrote every address I could remember, starting from early childhood. I wrote the names of schools. I wrote the years I changed towns. I wrote every job I had. I did not try to make it pretty. I tried to make it true. I also wrote down the strange gaps. The years where my mother would get tense if I asked too many questions. The one old photo that had no date. The way she avoided talking about my first birthday. The way she never mentioned my father, not even once, not even in anger. I had always told myself that was just her personality. She did not like the past. She liked routine. She liked moving forward. Now I had to admit the past might not just be uncomfortable. It might be connected to a reason. While I was still at the library, I got a message from Lena. She asked why the clinic called her. I had not told the clinic to call her, and I did not even know they had. That made me pause. I replied in a short way. I said there was a medical issue and I was handling it. I said I would explain when I could. I kept it calm. She replied that I always brought chaos and that I should not drag her into it. She said she was trying to rebuild her life and did not want my problems touching her world. I stared at the screen for a long time. It did not hurt the way it would have before. It felt like a final confirmation. She was not my partner anymore. She was a person protecting her image. Then Owen sent a message. He said he heard I was telling people wild stories. He said it made me look unstable. He said if I kept acting that way, the remaining business issues would be handled without me. I did not argue. I did not explain. I just saved the message. That was another shift in me. In the past, I would have tried to fix the tone. I would have tried to show I was reasonable. I would have tried to keep the peace. Now I realized peace had been used as a leash. The more peaceful I tried to be, the more they pulled. I left the library and drove to my mother's house. It was late afternoon. The sun was low. Her porch light was on, even though it was not dark. She always did that. She liked the house to look ready. She opened the door before I knocked, like she had been watching through the curtain. Her face tightened when she saw mine. She asked what was wrong. I told her what the doctor said. I used simple words. I said my DNA was flagged. I said the system used a year that did not match my life. I said it mentioned 1981 and the word removed. My mother's eyes moved away from me. She walked back to the kitchen without speaking. She turned on the kettle even though I did not ask for tea. I said I needed her to be honest. I said I was not a child anymore. I said I did not want comfort. I wanted facts. She said she did not know what to say. She said she raised me and loved me and that should be enough. I told her it was enough for love, but it was not enough for a federal system. She sat at the table and folded her hands. She said there were things she promised not to talk about. She said she was trying to protect me. She said if I went looking, I might open doors that were better left closed. I told her the doors were already open. I told her people were coming, whether we liked it or not. I told her I wanted to hear the truth from her before I heard it from strangers. She did not give me a full story, but she admitted one thing that mattered. She said my arrival in her life was not as simple as she had always described. She said there were papers. She said there were meetings. She said there was an agreement made for my safety. She said she had done what she thought was right. My hands stayed still on the table. I asked who else knew. She said very few people. She said time had passed and most of it was buried. I asked if my name had ever been different. She said she could not answer that. Her voice shook. She looked at me like she was asking for permission to keep her secret. I did not give permission. I also did not push harder in that moment. I could see she was near her limit. If I pushed, she might shut down fully. So I changed the question. I asked if she still had any old items from when I was small. A baby book, a box, anything with dates. She stood up and went to a closet. She brought out a small container. She set it on the table like it was heavy. I did not open it there. I did not need the contents yet. I only needed to know it existed. When I drove back to my basement studio, I felt calm in a new way. I was not calm because everything was fine. I was calm because I had direction. I took an old folder from a drawer and wrote one word on the tab, a timeline. I wrote another, messages. I wrote another, appointments. I placed a small memory stick on the table next to my phone charger. It was not new. It was something I used for work backups when the shop was still mine. I plugged it into my laptop and made a copy of everything I had saved so far. I was not taking revenge. I was not trying to harm anyone. I was doing the basic work I should have done long ago. I was building a structure that could not be talked away. I sat on the couch and looked at the ceiling again, like I had the night before. But this time the feeling was different. The ceiling was the same. The room was the same. My bank balance was still low. Only one thing had changed. I stopped waiting for people to treat me fairly, and I started preparing to be taken seriously. I woke up early again, not because I felt strong, because my body had learned to stay alert. I made coffee in a chipped mug and sat at my folding table. The room was quiet except for the heater clicking on and off. I opened my notebook and looked at the timeline I started at the library. I added small details I remembered. The apartment we lived in when I was little, the school nurse who always gave me a mint after checkups, the year my mother changed our last name on a mailbox without explaining why. I wrote it all down as facts, not feelings. Then I made a new list under the timeline. Who called me first? Who asked questions? Who avoided answers? Who tried to control the story? I did not write long sentences. I wrote short lines with dates. I checked my phone. There was a new voicemail. It was from someone who introduced himself as Agent Collins. He said he was following up on a match connected to my sample. He said the process required a meeting in person. He said it was better if I did not discuss details with others. He said he would send an address and time. My first instinct was to call Lena, not because she would help, but because I still had the habit of explaining myself. I stopped. I put the phone down. I told myself I would not beg for understanding from people who already decided I was a problem. Instead, I called Thomas Reed. Thomas and I met years ago through work. He is an accountant. He is not flashy. He speaks like a man who has seen many people fall apart because they tried to handle serious things with pride. He listens first, then he tells you what to do. I told him the clinic said my DNA triggered a federal match. I told him the system used a year that did not fit my life. I told him an agent wanted to meet. Thomas did not sound shocked. He sounded focused. He said I needed to keep everything simple. He said I should not argue with anyone. He said I should save every message and log every call. He said I should not sign anything related to the business dispute until I understood what this identity issue meant. I told him I had no plan to sign anything. He said good. He said people like Owen will try to rush me when I am stressed. He said timing is a tool for people who want control. After the call, I went to the library again. I sat at the same table. The quiet helped me think. I opened a public records site and searched basic information about missing child cases, not for drama, but for context. I did not get much. Most details were limited, and that was fine. I did not need a full story. I needed a clean list of what I knew and what I did not know. I wrote 3 columns on paper. Known, my name, my claimed birth year, my mother raised me, my address history. Unknown, how the word removed got linked to me, why 1981 appeared, who entered it, when it was entered. Next steps, meet agent, request records through correct channels, stop direct contact with Lena and Owen. While I was writing, a message came in from Nina Park. Nina used to manage the office side of my shop. She knew the bills, the schedules, and the real work. She was the kind of person who could look at a number and know if it was wrong. Her message was short. She asked if I was okay. She said Owen was telling people I was not well and that he was trying to protect the business from noise. She said she did not believe him, but she wanted to know what was happening. I stared at the message. For a second, I felt something like gratitude. Someone was asking, without trying to control me. I replied carefully. I said I was dealing with a serious identity issue and I was going through proper steps. I said I could not share details. I said I appreciated her checking in. She replied that she understood. She said if I ever needed a witness to how Owen handled things, she would speak truthfully. I saved the messages in my folder. On the way home, I stopped at my mother's house again. I was not there to fight. I was there to measure the truth. Evie let me in and made tea without asking. She kept her hands busy, like movement could fix what words could not. I told her an agent wanted to meet. I asked if she remembered any names from the time I came into her life, any doctor, any social worker, any friend who helped. She said she did not want to pull people into this. She said it was long ago and it would only cause trouble. I told her trouble was already here. I told her if she cared about me, she would give me what she could. She finally sat down and said one name, just a first name. She said it was a woman who helped arrange things. She said it was not a normal situation, but she believed she was doing the right thing. I asked where this woman worked. My mother said she could not remember clearly. She said it might have been connected to a church group or maybe a social service office. She was unsure. I wrote it down anyway. Even a small detail can become useful later. Then I asked to see the container she brought out before. The one she said had old items. She hesitated, then placed it on the table again. I opened it slowly. Inside were a few photos, a small bracelet, and a folded paper with handwriting on it. I did not read it closely. I did not study it there. I only noted that it existed. I took a picture of the folded paper without unfolding it, just to capture the outside. My mother watched me like I was doing something wrong. I told her I was not trying to hurt her. I told her I was trying to protect myself. She said she was scared. She said powerful people can do terrible things when they want to keep a story hidden. I did not react to the phrase. I did not want my mind to run ahead. I told her I would stay calm and do things properly. Back in my basement studio, I organized my folders again. I did not have fancy software. I had basic labels and a simple structure. I created a folder for calls, another for messages, another for dates and appointments. I scanned the instruction sheet from the hospital records office and saved it. I did not submit anything yet. I only prepared. Then I got an email from a mediator connected to my business dispute. The subject line said there would be a creditor mediation meeting soon. It listed a bank conference room. It listed a date. Owen was copied. Lena was copied. I could feel their hands in it already. They wanted the final story sealed. My heart rate rose, but I kept my face still. I told myself this was not a threat. It was a stage being built. I did not reply right away. I forwarded it to Thomas. Then I wrote the date in my notebook and circled it. That evening, Owen called me. I let it go to voicemail. He left a message with a friendly voice. He said he wanted to clear the air. He said he was worried about me. He said the business needed closure and the meeting would help everyone move forward. He said we could handle it like adults. I listened to it twice, not because I believed him, but because tone can be evidence too. He sounded calm because he thought he was winning. Lena sent a message later. She asked if I planned to cause problems at the meeting. She said she wanted it to be smooth. She said I should not embarrass her. I did not reply. I saved it. The next day, Agent Collins sent a meeting time and a location. It was a downtown hotel conference floor. The message was short and formal. It included a room number. I arrived early. The hotel lobby was bright and polished. People in suits moved in groups. Nobody looked at me. I wore my cleanest shirt and a simple jacket. I held my phone and a small notebook. That was all. A man in a plain suit greeted me. He introduced himself as Collins. He did not offer small talk. He said he needed to explain the process and confirm basic details. He asked for my ID. He asked for my current address. He asked about my mother's name. He asked if I knew anything about adoption or name changes. I answered honestly. I said I did not know much beyond what I lived. His tone was controlled. He did not treat me like a criminal. He treated me like a file that needed careful handling. He said there was a match to a missing child case. He said it was high profile. He said because of that, there were extra steps and extra eyes. He said the goal was confirmation, not drama. I asked what confirmation meant. He said there would be additional tests and official identity checks. He said I would be contacted for appointments and interviews. He said I should keep my routine stable and stay reachable. While he spoke, I noticed something across the hall. A small group of people dressed like legal staff. Neat hair, quiet voices, clipboards. They did not approach me, but I felt their attention. Collins noticed my glance. He said family representatives were aware of the match and had counsel involved. He said I did not need to speak to them without my own support. That line mattered more than everything else, he said. It told me I was not just a man with a confusing result. I was a person standing near a powerful family and a long story. It told me the next steps would not be gentle. After the meeting, I walked out of the hotel and sat in my car for a minute. My hands were steady. My mind was not racing. It was sorting. I called Thomas and told him what Collins said. Thomas asked if I had spoken to any family representatives. I said no. Thomas said good. He said I should not let anyone rush me into a conversation where they control the tone. He also said something that stayed with me. He said I had been trained to be reasonable, and that can be used against you. He said my calm is a strength, but only if I protect it with boundaries. Over the next days, I did not do anything dramatic. I did not post online. I did not call Owen to argue. I did not try to confront Lena. I simply kept building structure. I logged every new message from Owen and Lena. I noted the timing. I noted the pattern. When they felt control slipping, they reached out. When they felt safe again, they went silent. I also started preparing for the creditor mediation meeting without showing my hand. I made a list of what I could say in simple, neutral language. I also made a list of what I would not say. I would not explain my private situation to people who were not entitled to it. I would not defend myself against gossip. The strange part was how the people around me became more relaxed. Owen's tone grew more confident. Lena's messages became more cold. They acted like the outcome was already decided. That told me they did not see the full picture. They only saw a tired man in a basement studio. They only saw a man who had been quiet for too long. And that was fine, because for the first time in a long time, I was not trying to win in conversations. I was preparing to be taken seriously in rooms that run on process. The week before the mediation meeting felt slow, but my days were full. I did not do anything dramatic. I did not confront anyone. I did not try to win arguments. I focused on structure. Every morning I made coffee, sat at my folding table, and opened my notebook. I wrote the date at the top. Then I wrote what happened, in plain words. Calls, messages, appointments, anything that could later be confused or twisted. I also kept my body steady. I ate simple food, eggs, rice, soup. I slept on the couch, but I tried to sleep at the same time each night. I walked around the block after dinner. It was not for fitness, it was to keep my mind from spinning. Agent Collins called twice that week. His tone stayed the same, calm, procedural. He said additional steps were being scheduled. He said there were rules about who could see what. He said he could not share everything yet, but he wanted me to be ready for formal confirmation steps. I told him I understood. I asked what I needed to bring to appointments. He said I should bring my ID and be on time. I told him I would. After each call, I wrote a short summary, not feelings, just facts, time, date, what he said. Then I called Thomas again. Tomas asked me if anyone had tried to pressure me. I said yes, in a soft way. Owen kept checking in. Lena kept warning me not to cause trouble. Tomas said that was predictable. He said pressure often comes before a big meeting because people want you tired and unsure. He said my job was to arrive calm and clear. I asked him if I should reply to Owen and Lena. Tomas said I should keep my replies short and neutral if I replied at all. He said I should not debate. He said debates create confusion. Confusion is where confident people hide, so I did that. When Owen sent a message saying he hoped I would be reasonable, I replied that I would attend the meeting and follow the process. When Lena said she wanted a smooth outcome, I replied that I understood and I would act appropriately. I did not add anything else. I saved their messages. I backed them up. I did not send long explanations. I did not ask for empathy. I did not ask them to remember who I used to be. At the same time, I did what I should have done long ago. I separated my emotions from my responsibilities. I called the landlord of my old shop, not to argue, just to ask a simple question about payment history. He said he could not discuss details without the right authorization, but he confirmed there were gaps and changes. He said the pattern changed in the last stretch before the shop closed. I thanked him and ended the call. I wrote it in my notebook as a note, not as proof. I also called the bank's general line and asked what mediation meant in practical terms. The person explained the basics. Who would be present, how the mediator kept the order, what the room rules were. I thanked them. I did not ask for special treatment. I only wanted to understand the setting. Nina sent one more message. She said she heard Owen was confident the meeting would finish everything. She said he told staff he had support and that he planned to move forward without noise. She asked if I wanted her there. I stared at that for a while. Nina was offering something valuable, a steady witness. But I did not want to pull her into a mess without care. I replied that I could not give advice and I could not promise anything, but I appreciated her willingness to speak truthfully if needed. She replied that she understood. She said I should stay calm and keep my head. Those words mattered. Not because they were special, because nobody else was saying them to me. My mother called one night too. Her voice was tight. She asked if I was okay. I told her I was steady. I told her there were steps happening and I was following them. She asked if I was angry at her. I did not lie. I said I was not trying to punish her. I said I needed honesty and I needed it soon. I said I did not want to learn my own history in a cold room from strangers. I wanted to hear what she could say now. She went quiet for a long time. Then she said she was sorry. She said she believed she was keeping me safe. She said she never expected it to return like this. I told her I heard her. I told her I did not need perfect words. I needed the truth, even if it was messy. She said she would try. After that call, I sat in my studio and looked at the small container of old items on the shelf. I had not opened it again, not because I was scared, because I was waiting for the right moment. I did not want to act like a person chasing rumors. I wanted to act like a person building a clean record. My old habits tried to return in small ways. Sometimes I would imagine walking into the meeting and telling Owen everything I felt, telling Lena everything she did to me. In my mind, the words sounded powerful. Then I would come back to reality and remember something important. Feelings do not change rooms like that. Process changes rooms like that. So I kept my focus simple. I prepared my clothes for the meeting the night before. I ironed my shirt carefully. I cleaned my shoes. I placed my ID in my wallet and my wallet in the same pocket I always used. I charged my phone fully. I wrote the meeting address and time on a paper and placed it by the door, even though I already knew it. That paper was not for memory. It was for calm. I also made a small personal rule. I would not arrive rushed. The morning of the meeting, I woke up before my alarm again. I drank water. I ate 2 slices of toast. I did not check messages right away. I wanted my mind to wake up without outside pressure. When I finally checked my phone, there were new messages. Owen sent a short one. He said he hoped I would not complicate things. He said it would be better if I accepted reality and moved on. Lena sent one too. She said she did not want a scene. She said she wanted dignity. She said I should remember that people were watching. I did not reply. Not because I wanted to be rude, because I wanted to arrive clean. I saved the messages and put my phone on silent. I left early. The drive to the bank felt strange because the streets were normal. People were buying groceries. A man walked his dog. A bus stopped at a light. My life felt split into 2 parts, the outside world and my private storm. At the bank building, I parked and sat in my car for a minute. I breathed slowly. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. My face looked tired, but my eyes were clear. I told myself one sentence, quietly. I told myself I would do this the right way. Inside, the lobby was bright and cool. The floors shined. A guard asked where I was going. I gave the floor and room number. He pointed me toward the elevator. The elevator ride felt longer than it was. Not because I was afraid of Owen, not because I was afraid of Lena, because I knew something else was moving under the surface. The identity issue. The match. The way Collins spoke about family representatives and counsel. I stepped off the elevator into a hallway with neutral carpet and framed pictures. It looked like every formal building hallway. Quiet, clean, and designed to make people behave. A sign showed the room number for mediation. I walked there at a steady pace. I did not look around like I was searching for allies. I did not look down like I was ashamed. Outside the door, I saw Owen first. He was standing with his shoulders back, talking to a man in a suit. He smiled when he saw me, but it was not a warm smile. It was the smile of a person who believes the ending is already written. Lena stood a few steps away. She wore a neat coat and held her phone like it was part of her hand. When she saw me, her eyes narrowed slightly. Not anger, calculation. I nodded once to both of them, not as approval, as acknowledgement. Owen said hello and asked if I was ready to be reasonable. I said I was ready to follow the process. Lena said she hoped I would not make this ugly. I said I would act appropriately. I did not add more. I did not explain myself. I did not defend myself. I watched their faces as I gave simple answers. They did not know what to do with simple answers. They were used to me explaining. They were used to me trying to soften their edges. When I did not, they looked briefly uncertain. Then the door opened and a mediator invited us in. The room was a standard conference room with a long table. Bottled water sat in a neat line. Notepads were stacked at one end. The chairs were firm and identical. It felt like a place where stories become decisions. I took a seat without rushing. I placed my notebook on the table. I kept my hands relaxed. Owen sat across from me. Lena sat beside him, not beside me. The mediator introduced himself and explained the rules. He said one person speaks at a time. He said he would keep order. He said the goal was resolution. I listened. I nodded. I let Owen and Lena assume what they wanted to assume. Because for the first time in a long time, I was not walking into a room to prove my worth with words. I was walking into a room where systems speak louder than opinions. The mediator finished the room rules and asked if there were any outside issues that could affect the session. Owen leaned forward and started talking first. He spoke like this was routine. He said the business needed closure, the debts needed to be handled, and I should accept that the shop was no longer mine to manage. He used a calm voice, like he was doing me a favor. I listened and kept my face neutral. I did not interrupt. I did not correct his small twists. I let him build his clean story in front of witnesses. Lena added a few words. She said she wanted a smooth process. She said she did not want a conflict. She spoke like she was above it all, like my problems were something messy she did not want on her shoes. The mediator nodded and made notes. Then he looked at me and asked for my position. I said I understood the process and I would cooperate. I said there was a separate matter that might affect identity and authority, and I had been told it could not be ignored. I said I did not want surprises later, so I wanted the mediator to know early. Owen gave a small laugh and asked what I meant. His tone sounded confident, like he expected a weak excuse. Before I could answer, there was a knock at the door. The mediator opened it. A man in a plain suit stepped in. I recognized him as Agent Collins. 2 other officials stood behind him. A woman in a neat dark suit also entered with a folder and a calm face. Collins introduced her as counsel for the family connected to the case. The room changed in 1 second. Chairs stopped moving. Even Owen's posture shifted. Lena's eyes went to the folder and then to my face, like she was measuring the moment. Collins spoke in a controlled way. He said the purpose was not to create drama. He said his office was present because a verified match had triggered a required process. He said the match was connected to a long-standing missing child case, and the identity link had to be handled through formal steps. The mediator asked if this affected today's mediation. Collins said yes. He said the question of who I was, under the system's record, could affect signatures, authority, and the validity of certain past filings. He said he was not here to accuse anyone in the room, but he was here to prevent an improper outcome. Owen tried to speak. The mediator raised a hand and said one person at a time. Owen stopped, but his face tightened. He looked at me like he expected me to explain myself, like this was still a private argument he could control. The family counsel opened her folder and handed the mediator a sealed packet. She spoke politely and said the packet contained the current confirmation status and the steps being executed. She said it was restricted information, but enough could be shared to guide the room correctly. The mediator read in silence for a minute. His expression stayed professional, but his eyes narrowed in focus. He asked Collins one direct question about whether this was a confirmed match or only a preliminary flag. Collins said it was confirmed as a match under the program standards, and additional confirmation steps were already scheduled to finalize identity status in the system. He said the record showing the word removed and the year 1981 was part of the linked file history, and it explained why my stated birth year did not align with the database record. I felt my chest tighten, but I stayed still. Hearing it said out loud in this room made it real in a new way. Lena's mouth opened slightly, then closed. She looked down at her phone, but her hand was shaking, so she set it on the table instead. Owen forced a smile and said this had nothing to do with the mediation. He said we were here for debts and business matters, not personal history. He said I was trying to distract everyone. The mediator did not react to his tone. He looked at Owen and said calmly, "That identity and authority affect contracts and transfers." He said if there was a federal identity process in motion, this meeting could not proceed as if nothing changed. Then the mediator said something that landed like a weight. He said the transfer and settlement items planned for today were suspended until the identity review was cleared. He said nobody would be signing a final transfer in this room today. He said the bank and the creditors would be informed in writing. Owen's pen was in his hand. I watched it pause over his notepad. His fingers tightened like he wanted to squeeze the moment back into place. Lena turned to Owen and spoke in a low voice. I could not hear the words, but I saw her face change. Her calm mask cracked for a second. The mediator asked if there were any other relevant facts he needed to know, now that the suspension was clear. That is when Nina stood up from her chair near the corner. She had arrived quietly before the session started and sat where she would not draw attention. Now she spoke with a steady voice. She said she managed the office records for years. She said she saw Owen move decisions and accounts without my involvement. She said she saw messages where he told staff not to include me. She said she was willing to provide a formal statement through the right channels. Owen stared at her like he could not believe she spoke. He told her to sit down and said she was confused. Nina did not raise her voice. She said she was not confused. She said she kept notes because that was her job. The mediator wrote more notes. He said he would not take statements informally in the room, but he would record that a key operational witness was offering formal cooperation. The family counsel then addressed the mediator and said there was another reason the room needed to pause. She said that, if the identity confirmation completed as expected, I would be linked to a protected financial arrangement created for the missing child case. She said it was designed to provide immediate stability and legal support for the person once confirmed. She said it was not a reward, but a structured protection tied to the case. Owen shifted again. His eyes moved fast between Collins, the counsel, and the mediator. He looked less like a leader and more like a man realizing the ground under him was not solid. Lena's face went pale. She looked at me as if she was seeing me for the first time, not as a tired man from a basement studio, but as a person connected to something larger than her social circle. Collins said the next steps would be scheduled directly with me. He said I would be contacted for appointments, and I would receive instructions on what I could share and what I could not. He said he recommended that business disputes be paused until the identity process reached the next formal checkpoint. The mediator closed his folder, stood up, and said the session was concluded for today. He said a new session would be scheduled only after legal and identity issues were clarified. He said the bank would not process any transfer related to the disputed business control until then. Owen started to protest again, but the mediator did not engage. He simply repeated the suspension and asked everyone to gather their items. I stood, picked up my notebook, and slid it into my bag. My hands were steady. My heart was loud, but I did not show it. Owen stayed seated for a moment, staring at the table, as if his plan was still written there and he could force it to happen by looking harder. Lena grabbed her phone with both hands and stepped back from the table, like distance could protect her. As I walked to the door, I heard the sound of Owen's chair scraping the floor behind me, rushed and sharp, not controlled anymore. I did not turn around. I kept walking into the hallway, where the carpet swallowed the sound of footsteps and the fluorescent lights stayed calm, like they did not care who won.